Hello and welcome to episode 305
of the Filmmakers
Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking, from indie film to studio films to TV and
everything in between.
How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to
royally F them up.
In a very, very humble opinion. Welcome to the show. I'm Giles Alderson.
I'm Dom Lenoir.
And today on the show, we have director and screenwriter Phyllis Nagy. She is the director of Call Jane, the brand new feature film starring Sigourney Weaver, Kate Mara and Elizabeth Banks. The lovely Dom Lenoir sat down with Phyllis Nagy and had a chat, but he wasn't on his own. No, because Connor Burrow did so well on last week's episode, we decided to give him another go. So Connor Burrow joins you. But before we get to that, and you not taking the mics with you, let's talk about what you discussed with Phyllis Nagy, so what our listeners will get from this.
What was that about mics?
The fact that you forgot to bring them. We weren't going to bring it up in the intro bit. We're going to really rib you later, but
excellent.
I wanted you to talk about what people will learn from the episode first with Phyllis Nagy.
Right, okay. They'll learn that content trumps the method of recording.
Right. Is this your excuse for forgetting the mic?
Let's move on.
Good. So tell us, what did you chat about with Phyllis?
We talked about the writing process. We talked about bringing the era alive without making it showy, the difference between theatre and film writing, her big break with Carol, and handling a sensitive subject matter with a light touch.
Ooh, that's nice. It didn't sound like you were reading that at all. Just wanted to bring that
up. Giles makes me write down stuff on Microsoft Word, and it's really boring and corporate.
I just want you to say interesting things.
I just want to record stuff, and he makes me write down these little sound bites like a corporate drone and read them out like a robot. No, you don't have to be corporate. No, the thing is, if I don't do that, you'll witter on about it for 30 minutes. And people just want to know headlines. Right, what are they going to get from the episode? All right, do it in your own words then. Don't look at your bit of paper that you can't read from. Okay, we discussed the writing process. We discussed how she approaches theatre and film differently. We talked about how she handles a light touch with a sensitive subject matter.
You're looking at it. Oh, it's hilarious. It nearly was better. It was nearly better.
Yeah, nearly better. Anyway.
Phyllis Nagy is the screenwriter of Carol, as Dom said, which was the Oscar-winning film starring Kate Blanchett and Rooney Mara. It was so good that she then wrote and has now directed Call Jane. It's about a married woman with an unwanted pregnancy. She lives in a time in America where she can't get a legal abortion and works with a group of suburban women to find help.
Yes. It's a great film, and it manages to convey all of the the sort of the details that you need to know about the era, the politics, and the trouble that these women are going through. But it does, I said light touch, but it does manage to not be a sort of an overly heavy, difficult film to access. And I think it is very, very good and informative. And it's a good drama.
Wonderful.
So it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
And it fits with the current era as well. It's very timely. How things have come around with American politics.
I love it. And it is out in the cinemas now. Do go support. Honestly, this is great. I couldn't be there because I've been travelling between Portugal and Spain, still filming at the moment. And I'm in now one of the echoest rooms I might ever have been in, apart from the echo chamber I was in when I was born. But I am under the thickest blanket, more thicker than a blankie. I'm struggling. I'm sweating.
I felt slightly, after Giles has been off in all the glorious sort of European countries, this anecdote of him walking into a melting hot radiator-filled hotel room
it was?
in Spain, and then having to wear a duvet gave me a mild bit of schadenfreude.
Good schadenfreude. Literally 8-9 hour drive I've just had, and then I land into my hotel room knowing I had to do the intro with Dom. Dom's like, come on, I need to eat or I need to go to bed, one of the two. And I've come into the hotel room and they had the heating on in southern Spain. And now I'm under a thick duvet.
Blankie.
Doing that.
Let's always call it blankie.
We should, shouldn't we? It's always a blankie.
Just to clarify that, we talked about all day. I've been working, slaving away on Giles' cinema run all day. And then 9:45 p.m.
I want a time. I want you clocked in and out.
Slaving away on the podcast.
Yes, it's amazing. Yeah, basically, Dom is our tour manager for 3 Day Millionaire. I've been mentioning this for the last couple of episodes now. 3 Day Millionaire is coming to cinemas in literally 15 days. It's actually got previews in 8 days' time. 8 days' time!
Whoa.
It's going to be out.
What's the name of the document?
Dom, like I say, is our tour manager, and he has labelled the Doc's Google Drive, and Dom being Dom, has called it...
The Torshank Redemption.
The Torshamp Redemption. In brackets, 3 day. With a 3, right? It's all about Dom. Basically, he's helping us wonderfully with the tours, Q&A tour around the UK, and he's written it basically about himself. And by the way, we are going to go through this list of where we're screening. Tough shit. You're going to have to sit and listen to this. For one thing, it'll probably be quite funny.
I imagine
Dom will chuck a couple of puns in, but also, it's really important. We've worked so hard on this, for the last 2 years solidly. So to finally get a film like this into cinemas is huge. Honestly, it's a really big deal. It doesn't happen that much these days, and we've fought hard for this to happen. And Dom's worked his little ass off to get some of these screenings. So you are going to sit there uncomfortably while we list them out. Okay, the 18th of November is the world premiere in Grimsby. It's the Parkway in Cleethorpes. We've already had to put on extra screens on the 18th because it's sold out 3 times over. How exciting. Next, when's next?
Cleethorpes, back again on the 20th, this time with a Q&A. Then we've got Leeds on the 21st, showcase. We've got Maplethorpe in the Low End Cinema on the 22nd. We've got the London premiere on the 23rd.
But that's sold out, so apologies for that.
We've got the 24th in Manchester Stockport. We've got the 26th, we've got Blackpool Regent, which is a lovely old cinema.
This is all November, by the way.
27th, we've got Huddersfield, the Rex Cinema. That's a nice big one. Then we've got the 30th of November, we've got Croydon at the David Lean Cinema. We have got Kino on the 1st of December. The link is not up for that yet.
And that's Kino in London, by the way.
Birmingham on the 4th at the lovely Mockingbird Cinema in the Custard Factory area. And lastly, but not leastly, we have got the Wetherby in Ilkley.
No, well, we've got a cinema in Wetherby, which is calling itself Ilkley. So we need to clarify this, and I'll get to the bottom of this tomorrow. It's basically very near my hometown of Harrogate, so I'm very much looking forward to this one, but I need to know if it's Wetherby or Ilkley because they're very different places, so we're just getting to the bottom of that. And then we might have Ireland as well. So yes, that is 3 Day Millionaire. It is coming out in cinemas. Honestly, please do support. If you're anywhere near any of these places, we are doing a Q&A. Myself, Jack, some of the cast, Dom will be there doing funny puns, I imagine, with the Q&A. Come join us, come say hello, meet us in person, but also support indie films, support us. 3 Day Millionaire will be playing, by the way, in showcase cinemas around the UK as well. So that was the Q&A.
Yes.
We talked about, but we have showcase cinema in Bluewater, Bristol, Coventry, Glasgow, Leeds, Nottingham, Paisley, Peterborough, Reading, Teesside, Cardiff and Dudley, just to name a few. That's enough for me fucking grovelling.
There we go. So, sorry you had to sit through that, but now you can go out and buy a ticket, so that's great.
So congratulations to you. So I had a shout out for Simon Rumley. He has his crowdfunder for his latest book called The Wobble Club. Well, I think it might be his debut book, but Simon Rumley is a brilliant director who's made some amazing feature films, and now he's written a novel and he just needs some money to get it published. If you have some spare cash and if you like any of Simon Rumley's work, which I'm sure if you've seen it you will, then do go support him. Links to that are in the show notes. Right, let's get to it because honestly this sweat is dripping down my nose. It's probably going into the microphone right now.
Very nice. Very nice.
Oh, I can't bear it. Right, introduce the podcast, Dom. I'm going to take this duvet off. I can't cope. Oh my God.
You are listening to Call Jane with Phyllis Nagy. Welcome to the Filmmakers Podcast. We are delighted to have you on this, representing such an amazing film. Can you tell us how you feel being in the LFF and back in London?
Thank you. Yeah, I was here, 6 years ago or 5 years ago, I can't even remember anymore, with another film that I wrote but did not direct, of course. And this time it's exactly the opposite. So that feels quite nice, actually. I've enjoyed my time here, and I like being back here, even though I've come at a rather dramatic moment for...
Yes.
British politics.
Yeah. When hasn't it been in the last years?
Yes, I know. I mean, it was not this dramatic when I lived here, that's for sure.
I think America and England are sort of always competing to, who's got the most interesting politics at the time.
That's a tough call.
And that's very tough call. I mean, and we're better now, a little bit. But I think we did kind of trump you.
Oh, I like it. Don't start like that, yeah. I do like my puns.
Yeah.
So how did this whole sort of project come to you in the first place? How did it all begin for you?
Robbie Brenner, who is a wonderful woman and our lead producer, sent me the script. And I read it, and Liz Banks was attached already, and I've known her for now a long time. And though we've never worked together, I read it and I said, "What? Why? Why me? Why do you think I could do this?" And we talked about it, and I realized that she was right, that I could bring a lightness of touch to this topic and be non-judgmental. Fine. So I read it again with a view to seeing if I thought I could make that happen. With Liz, you rarely have the ability to tailor make something for someone whose work you know. I mean, even with Carol, Kate was attached before anyone else. But I don't know, there's something that, I didn't know Kate. It had already been written. It wasn't the same. So there's Kate Blanchett, there's that woman from, The Lord of the Rings. You don't...
Slightly different role.
Yeah, slightly different role, but she's who she is.
Yeah.
And at least I know Elizabeth. It felt like a human to me instead of a deity, right?
Yeah.
But in fact, it was hard. It was hard work. Both things were hard work. Getting it just right. But ultimately, Liz was a good compatriot for that. Let's make it funny. Not let's make it a comedy, but let's make sure we're not being very dour and serious. And, that ruins seriousness, actually. How many, we won't talk about examples, but how many films have you seen that are so...
just dour all the way through.
Yeah, and and it's about a serious, solemn subject. You think, get me out of here. This is not life. This is not...
it's not authentic.
It's not authentic. You go to funerals and you laugh. You have a celebration. Sometimes you cry. But I've rarely seen people actually cry like that at a funeral. I've seen old ladies try to throw themselves on coffins, but even that's funny, right?
Yeah.
To you.
Yeah. I've always felt that comedy is a sort of a mask for sadness anyway. And I find it's these kind of ways that people cope that sort of mask those underlying sort of generic dour sadness that are the most interesting, because people aren't sort of a single spectrum of happy or sad.
No, I think that's absolutely right.
And I sort of, when I saw the sort of the IMDb title, and it said, comedy, drama, but it's almost like, comedy sort of inspires certain sort of, imaginations. You've almost sort of created something that is the lightness of touch that's so good in this, because you managed to carry a very serious topic in a way that feels very effortless and is very easy to absorb.
Yeah, I do think it's easy to watch, and therefore sometimes that can be confused for something else. This is just a mainstream bit of fluff. But I'm very proud of the fact that, even people who don't like it necessarily just kind of gloss over the fact that they've watched an entire abortion procedure.
Yeah.
In an American movie.
Yeah. It's a huge thing to achieve, actually, to show that in a film. It is, and it doesn't sort of shy away from it. It's fully in, but you never feel like, oh my God, I'm watching something like really serious.
Yeah, I think people underestimate how hard it is to actually get that tone right.
And it's normalizing something that is a medical procedure, which I think our literature, and I think film and novels and television most of which have been presented not from a female perspective as well, but some have. Whether they are very, very good or very, very bad, they mostly focus on trauma and a sort of exceptionalism, always in the extreme, because, drama is, it's fun to watch something that you will never go through. So how many people actually die from the procedure? And yet all of the movies we see are about, people bleeding out in an alley or
yeah. But it's sensational, isn't it?
But that is why I liked this in the beginning, because it's not. It's about women solving problems. It's about women getting together, and I was going to say women talking, but I don't want to say that because there's a film like that, right? Which I haven't seen. But again, something's in the air. Women are making films about women getting together to solve a problem that other people can't solve, which is, I think, what women have probably done forever in some way, quietly getting on. And the film quietly gets on. And so I had some friends come and watch it, English friends, not last night. I was very gratified that they actually paid attention to the things that you do pay attention when you watch a film, but somehow, like the art direction and how there were all of these gourd shapes in the film. And I was like, wow, you watched that? But you do, except when there is a subject that people think is foregrounded. So suddenly they think, this is just a ripped from the headlines thing, right? That no one paid any attention to anything. We just turned on the camera, and it's like, well, no, of course you pay attention. But you have to be willing to entertain that the subject matter doesn't really drive a film in the way that you think it is, or a book or a play. That it is just the hanger on which you
build all the characters.
Yeah.
Because it's very much a sort of it is about a group of women that sort of band together, and other women that sort of come in and out of the story, and it's kind of there's a very nice connection there, and the sort of camaraderie and yeah. I mean, did you when you first received the script? I'm guessing the whole scenario in America with the Wade versus Roe, is that right?
Roe v. Wade.
Roe v. Wade, yeah. I mean, that wasn't even a thing. I mean, has that affected the release?
No. I mean, this was always planned for whenever it's being released, the end of the fall. And it's being released, coincidentally, the week before the American midterms. So that's interesting. But when we were making it, or when the script came to me, Trump was busy putting those people on the Supreme Court.
So this was already in the pipeline in a way.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I mean, we knew this was coming. They've been trying to chip away at it for years. What we didn't know, what I didn't know, was how they would just decapitate it, just all at once. That's fine. I mean, it seems to have galvanized American women in some way. Look at the vote in Kansas. So maybe not chipping away was a mistake by the Supreme Court, but it's odd. What's odd is they're the judicial branch of our government. They politicizing decisions. They've never done that. Well, they have always followed a sort of zeitgeist in a way. But this isn't following the zeitgeist. Poll after poll is, 60, 70%, I can't remember, of Americans don't think it's anybody's business, but, the woman.
Yeah, I mean, it was shocking. Like for us in the UK, I mean, it was really, I mean, I can't obviously speak, but it was a shock just to hear it on the news. It seemed out of reality with like the way that the world was, progressing. And I guess it's very good that you've got a film like this that's out there that's, that has got a good message.
Well, I hope it just, can inspire somebody in a place where it's not easy for them to be, to get up, get out, band together with others who will probably feel similarly. That's really a modest hope, but I don't have any grand illusions that any film can change the world. I mean, I was talking about this with someone else. Are there films that have changed the world?
I think there's films that change individual people.
Yes.
I think when you can be in the cinema and you can be going through something very specific in your life, and a film can just be a brilliant catharsis, and it can either change your perspective or it can help you release something or empathize with something. But if that happens to one person across the globe times a million, then maybe it is enough. People get talking about it in the press. I think there is. I don't think it's like one film will change it, but I think one film starts a wave and then another one starts a wave, and it all sort of builds up. And I do think there is it's not an easy thing to measure, but I think there's definitely an impact.
I think that's true. When I think about it, I remember all the letters I would get from women, older women, younger women, around Carol, and how they would tell me their stories, especially if they were older women who had actually been alive at that time, and how meaningful it was to see their sort of story depicted on screen. I think that's, though, these days what people respond to, their stories. And it's interesting to me as a writer, especially, I've never been interested in my own story. I mean, I'm profoundly boring, and I'm always interested in other people's. I go to the cinema, I read books to not learn. I don't mean learn a lesson about another culture or but about people. And that is something that I hope people may take away from this, that maybe you see your own story in there somewhere, but actually it's a collective story about the kind of action that you don't see a lot now. You see a lot of performative action, a lot of public action, but the things that you can do without having to put yourself out there, either on social media or in the streets or literally.
Well, it's sort of quite an unsung hero sort of story in a way. I mean, they're not like promoting themselves or expecting any kind of praise from anyone.
Yeah.
Well, I know obviously they could. Yeah. But big banners everywhere. But it is. I think people love those stories where people are doing it for not for the fame or the glory, and it's obvious they aren't. They're just doing it.
They're just helping people. I mean, I think that's something that whole attitude of what's in it for me, is just not operational for that group. And who knows? Probably there were pockets of that. Everybody, they're human beings. But I know I teach sometimes, and the younger the student, the less likely they are to have lived without any restrictions. So the whole issue of abortion not being available is just, that does not compute, especially if they have grown up in New York or California or some state where it's unthinkable that this right would be taken away. But it's no big deal. And well, actually, it is a big deal. This right's connected to other rights, and those rights are connected to, still more.
What goes next?
Well, I mean, it could be anything, really. Somebody joked with me the other day that, the way that this will all end is if the Supreme Court suddenly decides to take the right of old white men to run for Congress away. Then suddenly, well, we can't have that. And I mean, it's not true literally, but it feels true. If one of those guys suddenly couldn't be a member of Congress because of his identity, wow, you'd see some changes.
So once you got to the stage of the script being sent to you, you've obviously got a writing background. What's your process in terms of having read it versus what you want to do with your writing hat on and your director hat, in terms of purely the script to start off with?
Well, I did have a meeting with there was a writing team for this, and we talked through the things that I was interested in. Every director has more of if you're honest, you have more of an interest in one thing or another, and you then shape your path based on that. So I had a meeting with them and said, look, at that moment, we thought we were going to go into production right away. And as it turned out, COVID intervened. So there was a whole other year where we could then work on this. But I just sort of laid it out and said, this is what I'd like to do. They had been through a process already, asked them what they, would hate to lose or what was important to them, which is actually, as I understand it now, really unusual but I have that writing background, so I understand about that. And then set about also speaking with Sigourney and...
So Sigourney was also attached?
No. But okay. She came on fairly quickly. Sigourney, Liz, because with Sigourney, then certain other pieces of the financing fell in place. This was all equity, private funded, and tax breaks, and that kind of thing. But then the dominoes with the casting, the rest of the casting. So once I had those two, and I knew exactly what we needed to do to service them. Oh, and I don't mean that in a terrible way. I don't mean they were demanding changes. I mean, you talk to people and you realize what their rhythms are and what they're not. And I think that ear really informs performance, You put kind of words in people's mouths who shouldn't be saying them because who they are is not compatible. We spent a long time talking about that and then working. And then I just spent a long time with my DP. This was shot on Super 16 with one camera, and the producer was sort of white knuckling it because she said, I haven't shot anything on film for 20 years. And I have not shot with one camera in 20 years. I thought, oh, whoa, okay. You sure you don't want another camera? I mean, we took a few days with another camera, and frankly, a lot of it was unusable because you can't, the A camera and the B camera were
crossing over.
Yeah. I think we used some, there was one day when it was useful, but it was because we were shooting 2 different sizes of close-ups for the same scene. It's the detective scene toward the end. I think there's a 50 mil and a 35 mil close-up of John Magaro and Liz. But quite frankly, they were white-knuckling everything for the first couple of weeks. Well, first week, because we only had 23 or 25 days.
Not very long, especially shooting with film. I guess that might slow down the process slightly compared to digital and the cameras we have today.
Well, I don't know that it did because we were very prepared, and I didn't do a lot of takes. We shot just under 60,000 feet of film, which is not a lot. And the scenes that needed multiple takes were the opening shot, following her through that door. And those are the days in which I had playback because you need to know that those are working, but otherwise they had no playback. Wow. To wait for the dailies.
Just trust in the day, trust in the moment, and your DP.
And the planning for that. But those sequences, the rain sequence, all of those, the end, we had long, multiple takes of technical moves, and but mostly the acting shots. The abortion sequence itself was the most complicated thing we shot because it had really numerous 10, 11 setups, and it was a set. We built that set because we couldn't find apartments that, down the hall there'd be someone with a boombox and.
Oh yeah, always that guy. Yeah,
right?
Or the hedge trimmers come out. Yeah,
the hedge trimmers. No, and we needed to allow them to basically act through when we could.
Then the camera sort of stays out the way almost and allows the scene
what needs to be done. It was only me and and the DP in there. There was no one else.
So what was your your process? I mean, you mentioned the single camera. Was that a conversation with you and the DP sort of from the word go? Okay, we want to try and shoot it in this way. We're not going to go for just sort of traditional coverage. We want to have one camera, which we're really thinking about. How did the look of the film sort of originate?
Well, I knew that I had to shoot this on film because we had no money. It was, we talk about it's around $8 million, which is not a lot of money for a period film like that. I knew we weren't just going to do sort of guerrilla handheld. That's not that world. That isn't what it is. And I knew that film was very forgiving. 16 mils forgiving of what I knew would be lack of funds somewhere in the production design, costumes, although we had the genius that is Julie Weiss doing the costumes. So, but I knew there would be mistakes to have to cover, and the amount of manipulation that you can do if necessary. We didn't have to do much in a DI at all, but that was going to help us. It was also going to help us with the immediacy, connecting the period to now, without making it a 60s. I didn't want to fetishize the 60s with the sort of pop art colors and no. I don't know anybody. I was watching, going through my mom's snapshots of when she was a young woman in the 60s. Nobody wore bright neon pink skirts except like Edie Sedgwick, who was a model. No one, And so we were scrupulously trying to
be in the era, but not showing the era.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked an awful lot about the colors of Chicago of that time period. And of course, you have people like Vivian Mayer, who had color documentation, and a sort of framing that referenced films of the 70s. Well, not all films of the 70s, but certain American independent films of the 70s that we were very interested in. So there was a sort of energy that was also not of this moment, but connected to this moment. So we really, really designed the color palette of the costumes and the set to look like real life through the, if this makes sense, through the lens of a independent film of that period of time.
And I think that's one of those things that can draw you out of a story is when you're 60s, 70s, 80s, and suddenly you've got the jumpsuits out, you've got the bright colours, and it's like, okay, what was the song from this time, or what was this from this time? Yeah. And you, what is good about this is that it's just subtly in the back of your mind. Every now and then you remember it's a period piece, and it's but it is essentially you're just in that world as if it were today. Which is great.
And every once in a while, we allowed the fabulous costume that you knew no one would own right there in that community. Like there is a jumpsuit, I think, that Kate Mara wears at the end of the film. It's just a fabulous thing, right? But would she have really owned that? I don't know.
Yeah.
The young widow, maybe. But every once in a while, there was something that popped, or we had about 5 cars that they had to keep dressing up, because you do this. There were an awful lot of Mustangs, and I remember looking out saying, did everybody own a Mustang in 1968? So we got some like Crown Royals and whatever else. But this recreation of a period on what's essentially a very little amount of money for a movie like this, and that it doesn't look like absolute shit.
That always helps.
Always a good thing. Yeah. I mean, how much time do you spend researching that? Because I guess it's one of those things where you hear some directors that just like become obsessed with the era. Other ones are more like, I just want to keep it authentic and real, and I have a production designer that helps with that side. How did you approach that?
I have particular things that are of interest to me, like, making sure that there's not too much art on the wall. Like nobody has the number of pieces of art that are in films. It's like, really? I mean, if it's good art, it's fine, but who goes out and buys pictures of flowers, really, to put on a wall? But the set decoration aspect of it is like I've spent more time making sure there was furniture that wasn't totally current. As you grow up, right, and you have your mom had pieces from her mom, or there's one new couch and there's one. And so that's the kind of thing that I'm obsessed with. Like, not authenticity, but things that create a feeling of we're actually here.
Lived in.
This is lived in. This feels right, even though you have no knowledge of maybe what would have been right then. But you know it from your own lives. You know, even growing up in the 90s, you know, you would not have had, I mean, I don't know what this stuff is.
You got just for the audio for the listeners, we've got a mannequin in the room, and we've also got
a headless mannequin.
Yeah, we've got the head of a bed that matches the mannequin, but with no bed underneath it, which is an interesting set of scenarios that have come together.
Is a bed that we're not. It's a munchkin bed. Yeah. But I mean, what period of time is this? Mannequin, early mannequin, and the art.
Yeah. We've got a guy hanging some rabbits on a pole.
But the perfect example, you've got two pictures on this wall and nothing there.
Yeah.
And so in a movie, you'd have it would be perfectly matched.
Yeah.
So my job then became saying, no, take that away, take it away. Whereas, leaving people, you have those discussions. Of course you do. No, I don't want an avocado kitchen. No, this is not that kind of 60s. And then you just trust your people and then make adjustments.
I always think what you take away is just as important as what you add when you're making a film, like in terms of like the world building and what kind of world you want to show. Just by removing some things that might lead you in this direction or that, that is a choice. Everything you take away is as much of a choice as what you put in. So
yeah. One day I want to see a movie in which there's nothing anywhere. There's an empty room and maybe a table, and I wonder what that would do to an audience. Have you ever seen a movie like that?
I know I have. I'm blanking on it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
All of this negative space that is not... You see it quite often in theatre.
Yeah, because that's your background, isn't it? So I mean, did theatre, in terms of the rehearsal period, because you do a lot of that in theatre, was that something you like to carry on into this? Like, how did you rehearse with the actors for this?
Well, in film, of course, I remember the first movie I made, which I had more money for than this one. We rehearsed for a week, which was...
Is that Mrs. Harris?
A lot, yeah. That was a lot. But it was really...
A week? Yeah.
A week, and it was not a full week. It was half the day, because the other half of the day was costume fittings and this and that. And so I had everybody who had scenes with the two principals come in. And you don't sit around reading the script. You talk about, just to make sure people are all on the same page, because you never know. So we had that with this, but I think we had 3 days, and it was really Liz and Sigourney, Woomy, and then the Janes. I wanted that group to just hang out because they were important to have that sense. Chris, Messina, and Kate, and the rest, no. We just talked on the set, or not right before we were shooting, but, you cast. If you cast well, good things happen. And if you don't, well...
bad things happen.
There's always the scissors, right?
I was going to ask about that, actually. Do actors ever really catch you off guard when it's your writing, your dialogue? Do they ever interpret it in a way that's just completely not what you expected, whether good or bad?
Yeah, I've had those experiences in the theater. I mean, on Mrs. Harris, we had, like everyone in that was somebody you've seen a lot. And so you knew their work. They would surprise me in a good way. Like, I remember Mary McDonnell coming on set one day and saying, "Would you mind if I chewed gum in this scene?" And I said, no, it's fine. Oh, nobody ever lets me chew gum. It's like, oh, is that a thing? Yeah. But it was the absolute right choice for her. Maybe if there was an actor I didn't know or didn't trust or something, I might say, oh, no, we can't have gum. On this, Chris, I don't know if I would call it surprising, because he's quite if he could be a John Cassavetes actor, he would be. And he would make choices that would consistently surprise. Remember a producer saying, I would never have thought that would be the way he would approach this. Like, wouldn't he come in and scream? I was expecting him to come in and scream at his wife. And I thought, interesting. No, I wouldn't have thought he would do that. But I'm thrilled also that he didn't. You just have a feel for people. And you know what they're going to do or know what they're not going to do. And you don't try to really, directors say they stay out of the way of the actors. For me, it's more of, you remind them that you're over there if they need you. So you're not staying out of their way. You're there, you have their back. Mm-hmm. And if they need you, you're there. And obviously, if someone nobody really goes off course on these things unless you've really miscast. Mm. And that's on you and, the producers and the vagaries of financing. But
I mean, do you think part of that is you mentioned talking is a big thing. Is it a case of talking ways of interpreting scenes, or is it just literally going through the material and finding out what their perspective is and putting your own thoughts into it? Is that the kind of process?
Yeah, it's really about finding out what they think. Mm. And so if you find, at least for me, if you find someone is just talking about something you've never even thought about, before you shoot, you come up with strategies for how to suggest ways forward through the takes. And if you can explain what you want, actors will do it. It's the directors who stand, I suppose, in front of people and say things like, act despair. I mean, how can you act despair? You can't.
It's unplayable, yeah.
What is that? But if you talk about something about, they've experienced, or a very specific thing, they can run with it. And that's really all you can do. They give you what they can give you. You ask them for something else. You find a middle. And then there are just people who you don't have to ever say anything to.
Yeah, I've always looked at it. What you said about middle, I think is fascinating. I've always looked at it as a sort of an A, B, and a C. And an actor's on A and a director's at C. And then you have to sort of find something that's different from both of you in the middle, where it works for the story and it works for what you're after. And I don't think there's many departments where it kind of works like that. You have to kind of find this middle unexplored territory, but that's where the kind of the magic and the originality comes alive, I think.
I think that's right.
So did theatre, did you find it a challenge when you moved from theatre into film? I mean, do you see it as a very different medium? Because you've done novels as well, and I remember hearing...
Not novels.
What's that?
No, not novels.
Didn't you adapt a novel?
Oh,
you
adapted.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I like adaptation.
Yeah.
But they're very different things, film and theatre, and I wish more screenwriters, novelists, playwrights would respect the differences between the formats. I can't go back to theatre right now. You have to be out of a film headspace and back into a theatre headspace. But I always wanted to make films. It was my first love. And I never thought I would. I didn't go into theatre thinking, oh, that's a stepping stone, because that's ridiculous. It's not. It's its own art form. But I knew that maybe there would come a time when the right project came along and that would help get me out of that. And that, the first screenplay was Carol. Other things happened in between the time that was written and finally got made. 15 years later. So
it kind of happened, by progress of really being passionate about what you're working on, rather than thinking I want to be a a big film director, or you went through the theatre and then the script. How did the script for Carol and that process sort of come to you?
There was a producer who approached my agent here, as that happens that way, and she said, "Do you have anybody who'd be good for this?" And of course, I was a friend of Patricia Highsmith's, so my agent said, "Well, Phyllis. What about Phyllis?" And that's how that happened. Over many years, the original producer became other producers, and that was a whole saga. But that script, I learned a great deal about, how to rewrite a film script, because I was on my own for such a long time that I could do it without having a director. Later, when there weren't that many directors that were attached to Carol, but I could then respond quickly because I knew the material so well. And that's something I think directors need to be able to do.
I'm always interested when someone takes that big step up to directing a feature film. Because, I've directed my first feature, but I made so many mistakes along the way with short films and videos for brands. I sort of felt like I had loads of room to fail before that. When you're suddenly just thrown into this massive production with big stars, how do you approach that? Does it feel like a lot of pressure, or did it feel natural coming from the theatre?
No, it just never felt like a lot of pressure. And, I didn't feel it on either one of these, and they all had big movie stars. But they're actors, it's like, okay, they're actors. I've always been able to talk to actors. And that's something I think that a lot of directors don't do well.
Yeah.
Is if you can talk to actors, if you are articulate about that stuff, but also to communicate with your heads of department and all of that. That's a great gift. You're already ahead of the game. But I remember the producer on this saying to me, "You were the calmest person in the room. How can you be so happy? There's all this crap going on, and you don't have money, and the wallpaper's falling apart." And you just said, "No, it's fine." That is something you have to have, that innate, everything will be all right. And that, I think, probably comes from preparation.
Yeah.
Which, again, I've talked to so many directors, and a lot of them like to wing it, and I don't understand how you can do that. Well, maybe if you have tons of money.
Yeah. Phyllis, it's been an absolute pleasure. We wish you so much luck with the movie. Thanks for joining us, and have a fantastic
time. Take care.
Thank you.
The Filmmakers Podcast is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Subscribe for regular bonus content and special episodes.